by a lady in Toronto, and I sell pictures, I take aerial pictures, and she wanted to know if I had an aerial picture of the Canadian Violet Cross, and I did, and she said that she was born there, and she told me a story, and she said that she was born there, and her mother had been a school teacher, and her father had been a pilot for Saskatchewan Government Airways, and he'd gone missing. He'd gone missing in 1959, and she was born after that. She was in the oven, as you will. And so, anyway, she wanted a picture of Violet Cross, and she told me the story. And there were some connections there. And I knew her uncle, Morris Gran, over at Buffalo Arrows, who had flown for 25, 30 years for Athabasca Airways out of Buffalo Arrows. And I knew of this story. And the story was such that it was in August 20th, 1959, that on the left-hand side there is Ray Gran, a fellow named Ray Gran. And he was a distinguished flying cross from the Second World War, and as a bomb aimer, and not so much as a pilot, but as a bomb aimer. And here it was 1959 with his brother Morris at Buffalo Arrows. Morris was one of those larger-than-life kinds of guys, you know, and that's just a classic picture that she sent me of her father on the left. Well, that airplane had gone missing in 1959, August 20th. They'd taken off from Buffalo Arrows, and there was a conservation officer on board named Harold Thompson. He was stationed over at Isle Cross in Buffalo Arrows country. He was from Tisdale. He was a Tisdale boy. There was like 8 or 9 siblings in Tisdale. And the airplane took off. The weather wasn't very good. They were trying to get to the Losh, and it was ragged in the trees and foggy, and they didn't make it. They went missing. And the airplane, there was an oil slick, if you will, on Peter Pond Lake, and there was a fellow named Maurice Aubuchon, I think was his name, and I met him last week. He's 90 years old now. He was out commercial fishing on the lake. It was foggy, and he heard the airplane, and he heard the impact. So they knew it was at Peter Pond Lake, but they never found it. It was missing. And so anyway, so 7 or 8 years ago when I was contacted looking for this picture of Violet Cross, she wanted to give it to her mother, the widow. Their mother never remarried, and she was still living, and she wanted a picture of Violet Cross, where she was born and where they had lived. And I sort of came in contact. I said, well, I know the story, and I told her that in my years of service with the provincial government chasing the water bombers around the country, we would get to Buffalo Arrows on occasion. And so here you, I'll learn how to do this. Okay, well that's good. Over there in 1963, and they never found the airplane. So the airplane was missing. But there were 2 provincial government employees on there. The airplane was operated by Saskatchewan Government Airways, a Cessna 180. And the province named a peninsula and a bay. There was a Grand Bay named in memory of Ray Gran, and there was a Thompson Peninsula nearby named in memory of Harold Thompson. And the province put up a cairn, if you will, there, and those stand today. And I remember going out one time with the pilots, and we found them and cleared the brush and took pictures, and so I sent that to the daughter, and happened to be a doctor in Toronto, and so that's fine. So there's Terry Hollowatch. Maybe some people know Terry Hollowatch and Wee Wallace and Norm Thompson, Saskatchewan pilots. So that leads us through time. Linda Kapusta, she goes by now, and she married a Dr. Kapusta. So there's 2 doctors. She's in Toronto, and we stayed in contact. We stayed in contact. Every once in a while we would correspond or talk, and she said, time goes by, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and you see on TV they got the diving people that dive around the world and search for wrecks and side scan sonar, and she decided that she wanted to undertake this, and she recruited. She wanted to do a search on Peter Pond Lake and find her father. And she wanted to do this while her mother was still living. Her mother never remarried, and it was important to her. And I thought, well, that's interesting, And by that's just pretty tall order. How are you going to do this? And I didn't know much about science cast sonars, so I started to research it and talk to a few people who. I had to research it a little bit more. I thought, well, I guess maybe it's possible. Well, by geez, if you had deep enough pockets and you wanted to find somebody to operate side scan sonar, who would you go to? And he figured it out, and he went to this fellow named Gary Kozak down in the United States of America. And so this is Gary Kozak on the left. And he's been all over the world, and he's done lots of documentaries. And I just saw one here recently. It was just a recent release. You know, he found he operated the side scan sonar when they found the USS Indianapolis at 18,000 feet that had been missing since the Second World War. You know, like took 28 days to find it, but they had the deep enough pockets, a big ship, and a film crew, and he knew how to operate side scan sonar. So, anyways, they bring in this fellow from the U.S. and they buy a boat and they go all the way to Buffalo Narrows. And I said, they asked me if I would help and I'd be involved in it, and I had some suggestions and didn't fit their lifestyle. I said, we should sit out there with a crew and go up near where we figure the crash site is and pitch a tent and have a cook and, you know, oh no, we can't do that. They wanted to commute every day from Buffalo Narrows on the boat, and it's like, it's an hour and a half by boat, and it's a big lake. When it gets rough, I thought, well, that's not going to work. And so we weren't quite on the same page, so the way they went about their business. They hauled the boat all the way from Toronto, and they flew the side scan sonar guy, but they'd done their homework, and this guy knew what he was doing. And they went out there on the first day, and they went all day and they did GPS grids. And that's like they did on the Pacific Ocean when they found the USS Indianapolis. And on the last pass of the first day, they overshot. And he wasn't comfortable with what they'd done. And he made them come back and do it again. And by Jesus, they didn't come over, and they got hit. They found the airplane on the last pass of the first day of the search. Unbelievable. I was coming back from Oshkosh. I was with Dan Dennis. We were coming back from Oshkosh, and I was in correspondence with them. And they were feeding me information, and they said, we struck gold. I couldn't believe it. And, you know, all kinds of things happen here. They were really, really fortunate, but they did their homework, and they knew how to operate the equipment. And he brought in Top Gun. It was the end of the day, and they headed back towards Buffalo Narrows with that boat, and they got back, and they refueled the boat at the dock. And then the boat broke down. The shifter packed in, and the boat's out of service. So they pulled it out of the water. They got to get it fixed. But everybody's happy because they found the airplane. They know they've got the hit. They know the airplane's there. They got a GPS location on it. And they thought, well, we'll wait till morning to let Mother know. And that night, the mother passed in her sleep. Wow, what are the chances? You know, so now they're not dealing with the finding of the airplane. Now they got to go to Saskatoon because her mother, the widow, has passed away. I mean, and you know, it's kind of spooky in a way, but it's like almost all the stars aligned. They thought and wanted to do this for so long, and it's almost as if, you know, the family chose to believe that there was a connection made, and the mother knew. You know, she passed her in sleep, so that's fine. So they go on and they go back to Saskatoon, and they're dealing with the American goes back to the U.S., takes all his gear back, and they're dealing with the funeral for the widow. Well, okay, the story continues. So they contact the RCMP and the coroner, and they say, well, we found this airplane, and there's likely going to be human remains in there, and we want to know. And the RCMP says, we'll do a dive on there. But as it goes up the food chain, a week or so later, they're stalling and they're blocking, and the family says, well, when are you doing the dive? Well, it got up the food chain, and they said, the RCMP, and they said, it's too dangerous, we're not going to do it. So now, they know where the airplane is, and they think that there's remains in there, and they want to know, but and they want to unite the pilot with his recently passed widow and all this stuff, right? And it gets complicated. Well, so we get lobbying a little bit, and I get more involved, and we start to go after some of the different. We go to the media, we go to CBC, and it's on the news, and start to put some pressure on the RCMP to actually do something, and these were provincial government employees and so on, and anyway, so we made arrangements to send with the Lackawanna Band, because they've got their own underwater submarine, if you will, and because every year they lose people up in the north, and they're frustrated, and so they got their own equipment, and so we made arrangements with them. They're going to come do it. Well, when that became common knowledge that the Lackawanna Band was going to step up and go down there with their underwater drone, whatever. Enough people got aligned. I guess what I'm going to say here is we put enough pressure on and circle around the right enough people that the RCP changed their mind and said, okay, we'll do it. We'll go in. And so everybody goes to Buffalo Narrows. Everybody goes to Buffalo Narrows, and we're going to dive on the airplane. So that's the picture of the sonar. There's a picture of the wreck at the bottom of the lake. And you can see here, I mean, it's, and the RCMP are now prepared to go. They've agreed, okay, now we're going to do it. And I'm going to try and press the button here for the, yeah, there we are. So, but you can see it's tiered back. The wings are tiered back, and there's one pontoon, another pontoon, and there's the tail, and there's the front. But it's definitely an airplane, and it's at the bottom of Peter Pond Lake, and it's at about 60 feet of water.
Is that upside down?
And it's upside down, it's inverted. It's upside down in the water. Now, okay, so the RCMP, we've got a date, and it's at the end of August 29th or something like that. And I fly over with my Spice Cessna 180, and I'm there with Martin Grant on the left and Ray Capusta on the right. And Martin Grant is, he's a nephew of the pilot. And Don Capusta is a doctor from Toronto. He's married to the daughter. And so I go over there, and the RCMP are interested in my airplane because they want to see what they're actually going to dive on. It's the same airplane, the same model airplane. And so I'm over at Buffalo, and that's fine. The RCMP climb around my airplane, and they agree they're going to go down and do this. And actually, the frontline guys, the dive team that converged at Buffalo Narrows to do the task, they were great guys. You know, it was just up the food chain of the RCMP. They just didn't. I don't know what their problem was. They just probably didn't want to spend the money, right? And so here we are. So we're in Buffalo Narrows. It's muddy, and the weather is really lousy. And the wind is blowing. It's been raining. It's just lousy. But we're having a bit of a it's a planning session, right? We're discussing things and how it's all going to go about. So it's good. And we do a launch. The two boats go out, but it's windy, and they get out of that big lake, and they have to turn back. It's just too rough, you know. And so the next day they go again, and they get out there, but it's so rough again that they can't anchor to the bottom of the lake. They're drifting around. The divers are out there. It's a lost cause, you know. So they said, okay, well, we'll come back in the winter, and we'll do it in the winter. You'll solid platform. Of course, my initial reaction, everybody's reaction was, oh yeah, right, you know, the winter. Why would you do it in the winter? But you know what? They did it, and I give the RCMP full marks for this because they pulled it off. I don't think you could have dialed in a tougher time to do it. It was January 28th or something of this year. Just this is all recent stuff, right? And it was cold. Like, you know what January was like this year in February. I mean, it was like in the 30s, and they went out there, and they spent a lot of money. But they had all the equipment. They got out there. These pictures aren't coming up as big as I would have liked, but there's their image through the hole. So they've gone down through the hole, and they've got the image of the airplane. Again, there's the tail, and so there's something going on there, right? And so these are off the RCMP website, and they had a full crew. So they're out there, and they got their tent, and they got bombardiers, and they got a ton of stuff. I'm hearing through the grapevine they dropped $200,000 on this little trip out here in January of this year. And so there they are. So, but it's also a training exercise for them. They bring in their crews out of Winnipeg, and I'm not sure where else. They came from 3 different locations, and they converged, and there they are having, you know, trip back and forth. And the bombardier, and they got their tent set up, and they had little heaters in there, and it was a success. They dove, I think, for a couple of 2 days, and finally, and there was some skepticism as to whether or not they were actually going to pull it off, and safety was always a big deal, but they went down in pairs, and you know, all the protocols were in place. There was one family member there, Martin Grant from Ontario had come out for this, and so he was in the tent, and part of it, they didn't want him there, but he kind of crashed the place, and of course they let him in, and it was good. So here they are with some of their equipment, and they're in the tents, and it was really quite comfortable inside the tent. Tough conditions outside. This is off, like I said, off the RCMP Facebook page, and they found some artifacts. So they found a camera from the airplane, and and they got a knife, and here's some of the crews. So there they are over the hole, and that was the RCMP expedition. They also found, on the last dive, they found human remains. And they were really, the coroner was there, and they had a basket, and they found some remains, and they put it in, brought it up, and they huddled around, and they wouldn't let Martin Grant come in to see it, because it was human remains, and so that was fine. It was all respectful, but they did find remains, which went to the coroner, and then they went through all the process, and they were able to positively identify the pilot, Ray Grant, and the conservation officer, Harold Thompson. And so and it could have all ended there. It could have ended there. But you know, they got some personal artifacts. They actually found a necklace. They found a necklace, not a necklace, but a cross. A pendant, yeah. You know, stuff like that. It was, it was special. But it didn't end there. So,
Did you find his ring on the wing?
well, you're getting to the end of the story.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, this was the RCMP gig, and this was in January. So it could have ended there, but it didn't. It was, of course, we'd gone to the news. It'd been in the news, and you know, we had to put some pressure on to get the RCMP to actually complete the task that they initially said they'd do, and they did do it. And I like to give them full marks for that because it did happen. What ended up happening was, of course, people get talking, right? And people say, well, the airplane's there, maybe we should pull it up. And are you going to pull up the airplane? No, we're not. No plans to pull up the airplane. And then there's the Saskatchewan Aviation Museum in Saskatoon. And I guess the crowd there, the coffee crowd there, thought, well, this would be a good project, and this would raise our profile at the museum, and we could rebuild it. It doesn't look that bad on the sonar, and so on. And they decided that this would be a worthwhile project. And unbeknownst to the family, the museum in Saskatoon launched a GoFundMe page to raise the airplane and rebuild it. Well, I saw this, and I contacted the family, and they couldn't believe that this had actually happened. And so there was, you know, so things got a little complicated, right? And the family thought, well, if we're going to raise the airplane, that's fine. But we want to be involved in it, and we want to do it on our terms, because they had already had a huge investment into this, and it was their family, you know, and it made sense. So we started to talk. And there was a lot of talk, there was a lot of chatter, and everybody eventually got along. And we came to terms on it, and we decided that, okay, if we're going to do it, now's the time, we know where it is, and there's already a hole in the ice, we know where to go back to, and so we agreed to proceed. And there has been some support for the GoFundMe page, and it's all grateful, and the family has put some money into this now too. And so we pulled it off, so we gathered the troops. And I think in fairness, the way this started was that an old friend of mine from Sandy Bay, Jim Russell, had come into the museum, and they got talking about it, and he said, oh, I know a diver, and I can know this, and you know, it all kind of came together. And so there were basically three factions of three groups that came together for this, I'll call it an expedition to Peter Pond Lake, which we completed just last week. That's my truck. That's my truck there. And I said, oh yeah, well, it's no problem. I'll pick up the compressor. What do you need? And so I stopped in Prince Albert on the way to Buffalo Narrows. And I picked up this compressor and I hauled it up there. And the Kapusta family, the Grand family, they flew in from Ontario. And of course, again, I'll raise the same scenario. If you had deep enough pockets, and you wanted to hire the best guy you could to do the dive, what would you do? And he researched, and what the family found was this fella in Ontario, and that's an expert from out of town, right? But this is a real nice guy. Mike Fletcher's his name. And there's been 100 documentaries done that Mike Fletcher's done. 40 of them with Clive Cussler. You know, he's done National Geographic stuff. It's just, he's got 100 documentaries. He's been all over the world, you know, diving on U-boats and diving on stuff all over the world. And he's 60 now, 62 years old. Things are slowing down. And he was a friend of the side scan sonar guy. He came highly recommended, and he said, "Oh, I've never been to northern Saskatchewan." And he got convinced. He bought in, and he said, "Yeah, I'll come." And and for expenses, but for no wages. He just said, yeah, I'll do it. And he came out. So, okay, so that's fine. So the crew comes out from Ontario, and I'm driving out, and then there's the guys from Flin Flon and northern Manitoba and Sandy Bay and from Saskatoon, and everybody converges on Buffalo Narrows, and we're going to go get this airplane. We don't know how it's going to turn out, and we kind of got some ideas, and at that point, everybody's pretty much getting along. So I go to Buffalo Narrows, and I go to the airport, and here comes Don Kapusta. He's coming in from Ontario. He flies in Air Canada or whatever, and he gets on Mitchison's, and Mitchison's fly him and all this gear up, and they had a fair jag on there, and they come into Buffalo Narrows, and I pick them up at the airport. So that's all good, and we carry on. So I'm going to sequence through this. So now we got to pull all the logistics together. How are you going to do this? How are you going to bring up an airplane? And okay, here's the plan. Here's the plan. The museum wants the airplane. The family doesn't really care about the airplane, but they want the artifacts and they want the ring. They want what they can. They want as much of the human remains as possible that's left. The RSVP got a little bit, but they want as much as they can. And so this fellow on the right, he's Diver Mike from Ontario, the National Geographic guy. And he's done a fair bit of this. He's been around the world and he knows how to dredge. Dredging is the term. And so that's what the pump is for. And so what they want to do is they want to pump all this compressed air down to the bottom of the lake at 60 feet. And it goes, the air goes in, and when it gets to that depth, it goes into a 4-inch hose, it becomes a vacuum, and it sucks up like a fire hose. And now you got a 4-inch discharge from the bottom of Peter Pond Lake. And the plan is to go down and dredge, to suck all the remains out from inside the airplane and around the perimeter of the airplane. And so we got to build a cage. We got to build a cage to catch all this in. It's all new to me. I'm just along for the ride. I'm kind of there, So okay. So we go. The first thing we do is we go down to the restaurant. We go down to Izzy's restaurant, and he happened to be open at that time. He was real hit and miss, But they got all the stuff out the back and all these little things. See these nice yellow containers that they put pop and stuff in? They're really handy when you're picking up artifacts from the bottom of the lake. Put stuff in, and whatever. So. And he's got this structure, this old tail back here. Geez, Izzy, what are you doing with that? Oh, that's going to go to the dump. So you got a saw? Oh yeah, I got a saw. So he gives us a saw, and we bucked it up. And we built the box to make, I'll call it the sieve, the strainer. That's the where we're going to discharge all the dredging into. So where we go? We head out in the lake. Every day is a, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So every day is different. We got a nice road there, and we're heading out in the lake, and we go to the site. But it's frozen in the morning on the bush trail, but soft at nighttime when you go back, and the lake's frozen in the morning, but it's soft. It's every day is different. So there's my truck. I'm out there on the ice now. You can see how it's been really warm for a few days, but now it's frozen. So I'm sitting on top, but it's been slushy for lots of other days. It's just you're on the ice. I spent 7 days on the ice, see? And so there I am. We just showed up. I got the trailer in the back, and we're just going to unload all the hoses, and we're going to set up shop. There's a guy that's come over, a diver that's come over from Manitoba, and he's got a big trailer. This is Diver Mike, and he's going to be one of the divers, and he's got all his gear, and he's going to camp out there. He's going to stay out there on the ice, not go back to town. I got a hotel room in town, but he's staying out there with his helper. Bit of a story there. He nice guy, got some experience. He wants in on this. He's agreed to come in on it, and he's just doing it for expenses. He's not getting paid as such, just getting his gas like everybody else. But him and his helper are living in this trailer on the ice, and as Diver Mike described it, it was the perfect petri dish. One of them had a cold when they got there, and then the other guy got it, and it got worse and worse and worse, and they're shitting in a 5-gallon pail outside, and there's no showers, and they're out there for a week, and they get sicker than a dog, We don't see them for 2 or 3 days. They're just, it's a real mess. But anyways, they're up there. You're gonna meet some of these guys. It's real. So, and they're supposed to be in control, right? They fall out of the picture. They're off the map for quite a while. So we care. There's a hole in the ice. Here's the hole in the ice. So that's what we get. We get there, and there's a hole in the ice. That's ground zero. The airplane is right there. It's right there. And of course, the diver from Manitoba, the guy that with the petri dish for a house, he's got it all staked out. He's got ribbons around there, and he's got rules. Everybody's got to have cleats on their shoes, and they got to have a life jacket, and all these things. I never bought a life jacket, you know, and all these rules, right? So that's fine. But when they've gone out and they've plowed a road and they've got a circumference, you'll see a drone picture here shortly. And there we go. One of the things I did was I picked up, well, you know, I do plaques, right? I run the north and I do plaques and more stuff. And in my garage, I've got some wreaths that I got from the Legion. And when I go put a plaque up, often I'll take a wreath. And I was going on this trip, and I knew that Ray Graham was flying across the Second World War. And I thought, well, I'm going to grab a wreath. You know, it was fitting. So the first thing I did was take the wreath up and put it over the airplane. Well, everybody thought that was pretty special, and it in fact was. And it carried on. It put an aura of respect to the site that it served. So, anyways, there's just a picture at Ground Zero. And there's the wreath. The family actually took that back to Ontario. Okay, so we're setting up. Now there's Doran Wallace. So there's the museum crowd, right? So Doran comes up, and there's all, of course, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, because I'm a member of the museum, and I support them. Of course, there's all these people in Saskatoon that say, we're going to raise that airplane, and we're going to do this and do that. When the time comes, who makes the trip, right? Doran, his two sons, no, Doran, his son, and his two grandsons. That's all that's there from the museum, right? But there's Doran, day one. And Doran stayed for the whole term. Everybody else was gone. So the only guy from the museum was Doran. And me. And but that's fine. There's Doran on the first day, and everybody's got their hat off, and that's Dr. Kapusta. This is kind of an interesting little footnote. He's got this, of course, he's from, Dr. Kapusta, he's from Toronto, right? And he's from Toronto. That's about all I can say. He's a Toronto guy. And he's got this nice jacket that he's brought along because he got it from some medical company, you know. And every time he gets his picture taken, he wants to cover up the name of the company, you know. Eventually, somebody puts some duct tape on it, so he doesn't have to cover it anymore. And this one, he's let his guard down, but it's kind of funny. And so there we go. So we're moving ahead here, and yeah. So there I am. I've stopped shaving. We're out on the ice. It's a nice day. The sun is shining. And there's my old friend Jim Russell from Sandy Bay and Dr. Kapusta. There he's got his guard up. He's got the glove up there. He's got to cover that logo, right? So that's all good. And so we're moving on. Now here's the cage. So here's this cage that we got from Izzy's restaurant. And we're starting to mesh it in. So I'm out there with Diver Mike, the National Geographic guy, and he knows what he's doing. And he's picked the stuff up in Saskatoon. He's got all this meshing, and we're skirting in this box. Nice day, beautiful day. We're all feeling good. We're excited. We got our little plastic tubs everywhere, and we're on the ice, and things are melting. It's getting to be a nice day. There's a good picture of Diver Mike. And then this fella comes along. Okay, now we got another picture here. There's Kapusta, Dr. Kapusta on the right there. He's got his tape on his badge. That's all good. Fella in the middle. That's Harold. That's Harold Thompson, and he's the son of the conservation officer. Wow. So he's out there for a couple of days. Get to know him. And the fellow on the left, when he was a young man, he was a commercial fisherman on Peter Pond Lake, and he was the guy who was out there that day, and he heard the airplane circling in the fog. Heard it hit. Never saw it. So he's come out for a visit. What's happening now is the people from Michelle Village, which is on Peter Pond Lake, are coming into the equation. We never approached them. We just said we were going to go to Buffalo Narrows, and somebody plowed a road in from the east side of the lake, and plowed a road, you know, on a bush trail, and then we come across the lake 10, 15 miles out on Peter Pond Lake to the site, and we're gonna go about our business. On the west side of the lake, there's a community called Michelle Village, and they've known about this airplane being there since day one. You know, this fella's from that community, and he heard it hit. So they're starting to come out. They're hearing about this. Of course, it starts out that they heard there was $1.5 million going to be spent to raise this airplane. Of course, they come out and they wanted to be part of it, right? Well, no, it wasn't 1.5 million. We lost a digit there. It was 150,000 they were trying to raise on the GoFundMe page, but they'd only raised 1,500. So you know, there's no money in this, right? And so once that gets straightened out, everybody carries on their business. But where I'm going with this is, the community is starting to come out, and they're starting to show up. And people are driving across from the west side of the lake to see what's going on. And they bring over this gentleman, and he's part of it, you know? It's a great story. Okay, so we're moving on. But now we're getting ready. We're getting excited. It's first day, and we built that box, and we're going to do the first dive. And so here's the fellow on the right. He's the Manitoba diver. But the fellow on the left guy, that's diver Mike, and he's from National Geographic guy, and he's going to go down, and he's going to just find the airplane, take a rope down with him, anchor it to the airplane, and bring it up the hole. So he has a direct line now. He just doesn't search for the airplane every time you go in the water. You just get the line, and you go to the site. He goes down there, and it takes him a little while to find the airplane. It's in there, but the visibility isn't very good, and he's by himself, and he finds it, and he ties up on the wing strut, and he draws the line up. So that's the first day. And he gets to look around. He does a little bit of filming, and we can look at that in the hotel room at night time, you see. And so we're going. So here we are. We've got a tent set up, and there's a ladder. It's all there. And we're starting. This is the first dive. Everybody's getting excited. We're going. There's Don, and we're going down. Now, we've got, no, there's the box. We got the box set up outside, and we're starting to shore up, and the principle is we're going to pump all this product from the bottom of the lake through this cage. And everybody's getting ready. You can see the 4-inch line. See the big 4-inch line there? And the green one, and the compressors in the background. We're supposed to build a tent. Supposed to build a tent around that so nobody can look in and see what comes out. It's all going to be private, you know. It's all going to be. That's the way it's going to be, right? Yeah. Well, we'll see. And people start showing up. Now, if you're from Michelle Village, there's only 50 people live in Michelle Village. Okay. And Dillon's a little bit bigger. It's 20 kilometers from there. They're all Denny people, proud Denny people. And if you're a really cool guy and you live in Michelle Village, you got one of these. You haven't got a '67 Mustang. You got one of these. It's a bombardier. And they're passed down from generation to generation. And they use commercial fishing, and that's how you get around. So bombardier shows up, and Jim Russell, he's got a couple of bombardiers over at Sandy Bay and Flin Flon, and he goes over. We all go over and take a look. Yeah, there's a fish on the back, and you know, it's from the 50s. It's from that same era. Well, people are starting to show up. They're expressing interest. What are you guys doing? You know, and they're being friendly. It's all good. Come along. Oh yeah, have a visit. Nice sunny day. Starting to be a few more vehicles around. As people are starting to show up. There's Doran. There's Doran Wallace. Doran is looking at this thing, and he's talking. Doran's a great guy. Doran's out there. Oh yeah, I used to fly Buffalo Arrows. Oh yeah, I knew your dad. Oh yeah, I knew your grandpa. And he knows all these people, and the connections are getting established. It's all good. So we get the tent set up. These guys are from Michelle Village, and they show up. And by this time, the Saskatoon crowd's all left. So I'm supposed to man the cage, you know, the box, but I'm by myself. And so these guys just sort of wander over, and they just help. They just help. They're from Michelle Village. Big, strong guys. But now, we carry on. Guess what? It's the weekend. Buffalo Arrows. As he's got women problems at the restaurant and staff problems, and he's not opening his door. The restaurants, there's no place to eat. The only restaurant in town is a Subway. Okay? Open at 7 in the morning, goes to midnight. And I don't know where their people are from. They come from another part of the world. They're not Saskatchewan people, but they run that restaurant, and they run it seriously, and they do well. But after 3 days of Subway, you're kind of getting tired of it, right? And poor doctor. So here we are. This is like 7 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's, you know, trying to have their coffee and make your sandwiches so you can take them with you. And of course, there's those guys with the petri dish. They want us to bring them something, and so that's all good. And so we're getting a little bit long in the tooth, but that's fine. So that's the Subway restaurant in the morning. And so we go. So here we go. So we finally get to the lake, and every day, like I say, is different. And this is the road that I take it. So I come from I'm driving the truck, right? I got this truck, and I got these 4 guys from Ontario in there, or 3 other guys. There's 4 of us, and you take the bush road, and it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And it's really rough, and you get down to the lake, and it was, you know, you got to break ice. Maybe it was cold the night before. I went to -10 or something. So you get out there, and you got 3/4 of inch ice or an inch of ice on that road, and you're breaking ice all the way. It's a long trip. It ended up being 2 hours we had to go in the other way, like it was an hour and a half one way, and then it was 2 hours the other. That's just an idea of what we're up against there. So, but we're having a good time. Everybody's getting along. There's the truck. There's the truck. We parked my Tundra because it's only good for 3 people, not 4, and I'm really happy not to take it. And we get this from the guy at the motel, and it's just covered in ice. Look at this. That's just the way the trip is. And of course, these people from Ontario, they never see anything like it. And now they had their phones with them, and they were filming them from the back, and they were rocking around, and we're going up, and we're getting stuck and pushing and everything. And I haven't got that footage yet, but I'll get it. People start showing up again. Look at more vehicles start showing up. So these are from Michelle Village. Now this gentleman on the left, he flew with Ray Grant, and he talked about Ray Grant. He told stories about him and how he was the first passenger that Ray had when he showed up at Buffalo Narrows one time. And we went flying. And the woman on the right, that's the wife of the mayor of Michelle Village. So they come over and they're paying their respects and telling the stories. And there's another bombardier in the background. And so we get some more pictures, and everybody's getting more comfortable with each other. And then another bombardier comes along. Next thing you know, they put the cooler out and they got the hibachi out. So now it's starting to cook. Eh? Well, this is really starting to catch our attention. We're getting tired of Subway restaurant, right? And well, come on over. And so next thing you know, you're eating some pickerel, right? You got some bannock. Oh, a second. Dr. Kapusta, he's not sure about this. Well, I'm not sure about the fish, But of course, after he'd never eaten in a Subway restaurant before, so that's fine. So, but he gets into it, and so now look at the crowd. This thing on the left. When this contraption shows up, they pull it up with the bombardier. Well, what's that? Well, you'll see that. That's for cutting hole in the ice. I thought, geez, wonder why they brought that. these people had a plan. They really knew. They really wanted to help. They really wanted to help us. And so we're getting to know each other better, and they're cooking, and sure enough, Dr. Kapusta, he's up there bannock and pickerel. So that's good. Here we go. Look at this. See? Oh yeah. There's Dorian in the orange coveralls in the back there. He can't believe it. Dorian is just giggling. He's just thinking, boy, this is really going places. He's starting to think his museum might actually end up with an airplane someday from the bottom of Peter Pond Lake, and he was right. There's another elder comes out. Oh yeah, and when we'd line up and we'd buy the wreath, and there'd be prayers. We'd say a prayer for safety for the day, and nobody's wearing a life jacket, and there's not a lot of rules, but we had some nice prayers for safety, and it was all good. And here we go. Oh yeah. By this time we haven't seen the other diver. They're down for the count. Every once in a while he'd show up and he'd see all this stuff and he'd be mad and he'd disappear. But that was fine. So here we are. End of the day. Things are going good. Things are starting to take shape, and we're not eating Subway sandwiches anymore. So here we go. Now we're dredging. So here we are. We're no longer in the tent. These are my helpers. Saskatoon people have all left except for Dorian, and these guys are helping me. So we've got the sluice box out here, and the 4-inch hose coming in. And when the pump cuts in, and the diver's down there, and he sticks the hose wherever he's going to stick it. We got the lid on, and we sit on top, and it just sprays water out the side and contains the dredging material. And then when the pump stops, we take it off and we dive in, and we see what we can find. And there's all kinds of parts come up. There's some 60-year-old human remains. That happens. You find a rib or whatever, but everybody's respectful, and everybody knows that's going to be there, and the coroner is there, and there's some guidelines, and so we put that in a separate container, and that's all good. You move on from that, and then you find a seat belt or we got a pilot's license. You're going to see that, like there's some. We got a watch and a compass. There we go. There's a compass. That comes up through that tube into the box. Take the lid off. Wow, look at that. There's a watch, a pocket watch. Harold Thompson's pocket watch. Conservation officer. That at the top, that's what aircraft control cable looks like after 60 years underwater. Chunks of it, Oh, this is it. Okay, there's a fella from the Winnipeg Museum, the Winnipeg Museum, and Air Canada guy, and he said he's into this stuff. They salvage airplanes as well, and he said, watch out for the float pump. He said, back in those days, the float pumps were brass. Well, I'd never seen a brass float pump before. I got a plastic one for my float plane, and that's what they make now. He said, but back in the 50s, you know, they were brass back then. Watch out for that. So I told the diver that, and by geez, I'm up there. He comes over and after the dive, and he hands it to me. Brass float pump. Yeah, they found it in the airplane, I guess. This is part of the seat. So there was lots of this. He discarded most of it, but he brought that piece up for me because I identified it as being an aircraft part and to watch out for it. Because the airplane's inverted, and the seats are, they've fallen down from the seat tracks, and they're so when they go into the airplane to look for stuff, there's all these seat pieces in the road. But you'll see here, there's the track. That's where right there. So that's where the track fits in. That's where the foot of the seat fits into the track, and that's a tubular seat, just like in my airplane. That's the same one I got in mine. And so all this stuff started to come up. There were 12 of these. These are the farm people in this room will know what that is. These are tines. There was cargo on board. They were going to La Loche. We found 51.5 feet of chain, a dozen tines to go on the cultivator, some tractor parts. It was amazing what came up. This is a gearbox off a tractor. We were able to Google in the part number, and there's a date on it, 1948, and that was a part that was destined for an agriculture project in La Loche in 1959. Oh yeah, so then, okay, a lot of stuff's coming up. Some of the stuff they're bagging, the diver's bagging, and we pull it up to the surface, and most of it's coming up, a lot of it's coming up the tube. Well, we got plugged, kept getting plugged every once in a while, and then then of course all those big strong guys from Michelle Village wander over and step up, and you pull up your 150 feet of that green hose, 4 inches, it's not light. And we bring it up, and I remember the first time we had the big serious plug, and I'm scratching my head, how are we going to find out where this is plugged, and where's it going to be? And this guy's not saying anything, he's just walking around, and he's just kicking the hose. He's not saying anything, he's just kicking the hose. And I'm scratching my head still, and I look over, and he says, so here, and he says, right here. And he could tell, by kicking the hose, by density, this is where the plug was. I thought, well, that's a better bet than I got. I didn't know. And we opened up the cam lock right there, and we pulled up this pair of pliers. A pair of pliers there, and sucked up a seat cushion, some of the seat cushion, a bunch of that foam. And it plugged it, so then you're back in business again. And that happened a few times. And made in Japan, the Japan company. They still work, they were good pliers. This is our first group photo. So at the end of that day, we'd gotten a fair bit of product. We'd gotten a watch, and we'd gotten a bunch of stuff. And everybody started to feel pretty comfortable. We got full bellies, and we do our first group photo. Yeah, it's melting. It's this nice day. Everybody's got a smile. And we've got a plan. So next morning you come out, and of course you 2-hour drive to get there. Now, by now we've abandoned our route from the east side of the lake, and we're coming in through the village of Michelle Village, because they've been coming over already, and they got a road that built over there now. But it takes 2 hours. By the time you get out there, and you got to recharge the oxygen tanks, and that's the trailer, that's the petri dish right there. Those guys are living in there. But we're carrying on. So there's another morning scene. You can see we got the tent over the hole, and the cross is still there, and there's the big red truck that I'm driving every day. And now we got a few pictures here. We'll go to this. This is kind of cool. We had a drone there, right? The drone. So we might as well launch that drone, get a few pics. So here you go. There's the ice road coming in, and they made a circle over ground zero, and we'll take a few more looks here. So there you go. So there's the tent, and there's the campsite over here, and the pump and truck. That's the site. It's just that's where we were, and that's kind of a cool picture. It gives you an idea. But you know, it gets pretty wet and it varies every day.
Was your drone license?
Yeah, it's all good, yeah. That's cool, see, so there we go. So now they've showed up, now we're getting serious. We're starting to drill some more holes, and they've got that contraption here that they brought over, people brought over from Michelle Village, and, you know, everybody's kind of rolling up the sleeve. We got here's the sluice box over here, I call it, the discharge, and now, you know, there's no tent on it, it's just everything's flooding out. And people would walk over, the women would come over, you would walk around, and they were respectful. But now we're not making rules, we're just getting along and getting the job done. And, you know, sometimes it'll be a teeth will got through the discharge, because the meshing isn't very big, and they find something, and they bring it over and say, take this. Nobody's taking pictures, it's all good. We're just getting the job done. And, yeah, here's the cooks. Here's the ladies from Michelle Village, and they've got the kitchen set up now. Now things are good. Oh yeah, why not, eh? Well, Bannock and Wally, and there's the doctor and everybody's there. That's Diver Mike, National Geographic guy on the left, and it's all good. So now we're suiting up. This is getting suiting up for another dive. There's getting another dive to go down and get more stuff and more film footage. And here we go. Here's a few parts that came up through that discharge hose. I mean, I got one of these, that commercial policy license wallet. You know, that's that document. The document's gone, but it's come up through the hole, and there's a seat belt on the left. And this guy here, I mean, I got one of these on my plane. That's an inspection panel that goes on the flap. And I don't know what, oops, I'll go back. I don't know what this thing on the bottom was. We must have found, I don't know what it is. We must have found a half a dozen of those. It's almost like it was a toilet plunger and the center had gone, you know? And maybe they were taking a half a dozen toilet plungers to La Loche, I don't know. But the leather jacket at the top, part of the leather jackets and stuff, eh? And that's, I kept calling him Justin, but he's not Justin, it's Dustin, right? Big fella from Michelle Village. He was one of my key helpers. And you can see he's got a pair of tongs there. We're starting to expand the hole, make it bigger, so we can get the float out. Yeah, that's what's happening. You say, okay, well, it's time to pull the float out. We're going to get a float out of there. So here we go. Start the traditional skills. You know, they got the chisels here, and you start to make the hole bigger. Everybody's working hard, getting them out of there. The hole's getting bigger. Here comes the float. You know, and the floats got busted up real bad, and they're loose. And we're thinking, you know, if we grab onto it, we pull hard enough, maybe it'll come. By geez, out comes the float. And it gets kind of surreal now. It comes to the top, and now it's actually something. Now it's something going on. So up comes the float. When we get it out and we look at the front of the float, there's not much left. Like half the float is gone. I mean, it really impacted. And the whole mood changed. The whole mood for everybody changed. It got somber. You know, it was just different. You know, it just was, I couldn't believe it. You know, look at the front of that float, it's just gone.
How could you hit that hard in the water to have that collapse like that? It must have been.
And I'll digress just quickly here. What happened? I mean, I thought they turned and they hit the water in fog. But I think that it's that 178 seconds or whatever you've got. If you fly into a cloud, you're not IFR, and you lose it, and you go in, and spin in. And I think that's what happened, because both floats are destroyed like this. The front third or half of the float is gone, and the engine is gone. It's just, it was high impact, instantaneous. But so we got the wreath, and there we are. And so we got a bit of a peck. But and the mood changed at that point. It was different. And then we got the other float up, grabbed on it and brought it up, and what we found, I mean, look, the spreader bar is sliced. So if you go in here, you know, it's sliced. I think the engine came off on impact and came back and sliced the spreader bar.
Those silver things look like the covers for the floats.
Pardon me? No, we took them off. Well, of course, when you pull the float out of the water, you want to drain the water out of it. And so we came up, we took the covers off. Those were just the float covers. Yeah. So here we go. So you can see we're starting to, this is pretty much a mess. So we come back, so we depart, we come back the next morning, and that, of course, then the wind blew that night, right? Blew the tent over, and it was cold, and it was a different day. And so we had to get all that organized again. And this fellow on the left, he's the mayor. He's the mayor of Chisholm Village, and that's Jim Russell on the right. He's my main man from Flin Flon Sandy Bay. Great guy. And we say, okay, and now we've delayed the dispatch. The diver was going to go back. They had flights booked, and Ontario was going to go home, but we weren't done yet, and we were having some difficulty with the dredging, and it wasn't going as well. Well, those guys were sick. It was all kinds of things that we weren't done yet. So they delayed their departure for a couple of days, but they were out of time. We're out of time. Their flights are booked for the next day, and Dorian is kind of getting restless. Everybody's kind of getting restless. We're thinking, well, this has been a lot of fun, but are we going to pull that airplane out of the water? And so it got down to there was only one tank. There was enough oxygen left for one tank for one dive, and the pump was froze up. It was cold, and so we had enough for one dive. And they said, okay, we'll go down, do one more dredge, try to get that ring, and we'll hook up the line from the airplane to the top. So we give the go-ahead and say, okay, go for it, guys. Make a hole big enough to get that airplane out of there. And the guys from Chisholm Village just stepped up. They did all the work. They had the equipment. It was their deal. They wanted it out of there. They made it clear to me they want that airplane out of there. So here they are, pulling these big chunks of ice out. Look at this. And then it was windy. It was cold. It wasn't a very good day. So they got a trailer. They brought a trailer up, right? They're gonna haul that wreck out of here. They put a tire pump around the trailer, and the ladies got a little shelter to make soup. I walk up the ramp, and she says, lady says to me, I recommend the barley stew. So there we are. And so you can see, but it's cold. It's a cold day. And it's day 7. I'm getting tired, right? It's tough. None of this is getting to be easier. And here we go. There we're in there. We're having some soup and trying to have some tea and stay warm and keep our spirits up. But there's still some excitement in there. We're going to raise that airplane. And those guys are making the hole. There's the mayor again, and this is the nephew of the pilot. And we got a door. We got a door, then a second door, baggage door. Pieces starting to come up. Right? And there's that contraption again over the hole. And essentially what it is, it's a 20-inch auger with a Briggs and Stratton, and it's got a tractor steering wheel, and it's all homemade, and it's on a skid, and they just kept drilling holes to make it bigger and bigger, and then ice chisel between to connect the dots.
What would you have done without that?
Well, good question. It wouldn't have happened. You know, there was nobody from Saskatchewan. They were doing their drilling holes, I'll tell you that. And you know, look at how improvised. You've got one of those plastic little containers for the pop, and that's where you get the ice cubes out, right? Yeah. You got a rake, give them all the pieces. There's that contraption. There it is. They're getting ready to drill another hole, eh? Making the hole bigger. Ended up being 10 foot by 12 foot. Look at the size of those things. There it is there. And then now we get the drill rod out. Now we're going to put the tripod up. This is the last day. We're starting to get excited. But the day is getting later in the day. There they are. They bring it up. And of course, so they got 2 block and tackles, and they end up putting enough downrigger on it so that they can alternate, so they can pull it up and then switch over to the next one, go back and forth. Starting to get ready. The diver suits up. The diver's getting ready. He's going to go down, do that last dredge, and pass the line up. Now we're over the hole. I made a comment. Everybody's getting wrong, and I get this stuff. And I said, boy, that's quite a Danny teepee, I said. And that crowd from Ontario, they were just horrified that I said that. And everybody else laughed. But that was fine. Those guys built that thing, and they knew what they were doing. And it had a purpose. It had a purpose. Here we go. You know, and then of course you get it up, and then you got to pick it up, and you got to shinny it over the hole. And we got enough lines down now, so you can get at stuff. And there's the size of these ice cubes coming. And we're set up, and there's of course the door and the floats, and we're getting ready. The diver's going to go down, and we do one last dredge. Here's my helpers, and just great. There we are, getting ready to go down for the last dive. And where we go. And there we are. It is just now. Of course, it's so much muck has come up from the bottom. It's just muck city.
So how many days have you been there so far?
This is day 7.
Day 7, right?
Day 6 or day 7. Yeah. And of course, they've got the planks across there, so we can, there's no life jackets. Right? That guy comes. The poor guy comes out of his trailer. He's sick of the dog. He comes out. He can't believe this. He just gets mad. Yeah. There's the door. Now this is getting interesting. So now they pull and pulling. The dive is complete. The dredging is all done. That's all put away. Up it comes. Now, but what do you got? You got a big hunk of aluminum. You got an airplane, a Cessna 180, sketch from Government Airways from 1959. But God, it doesn't look like it, does it? And the hole's only so big. And I was really convinced from the video that I saw and everything. I was really convinced that one of those wings wasn't going to come up. I thought the wing was detached. But it come up and there were 2 wings on there. Well, no, the floats are gone, and it's inverted, but what are you going to do, And it's not going to fit through the hole. And I'm pacing around, and these guys are going hard. They're pulling and they're switching, they're doing stuff, and they're talking in Denny all the time, And there's a little bit of English going in there for my benefit, but not very much. And they're just going back and forth. They're talking in Denny all the time. And I kept saying, I wish I could speak some Denny, guys. I'd know what the hell you're doing, And they just laugh and they carry on. They get to the surface, and so, but you can see right here, there's a strut. There's a wing strut. So what are we going to do? So finally, where's the saw? Is there a sawzall? So we go back and get the sawzall and cut the strut. And we tie onto a wing. We tie onto the wing, we cut the strut, and it is detached from the airplane. It goes down. We got a rope. Okay, so we do the other side, cut the other strut. Down it goes. So now we got a fuselage and 2 wings that are hanging vertical. And there's the airplane starting to come up. I digress here. I just put these pictures together last night, and so it's my first presentation on this topic. But anyways, we got the airplane there, and we got the 2 wings. The wings are in the road, so we got to get them out of there. So we grab onto the rope and we pull up the wing, the first wing. And out it comes, and it's really a mess, but it's bring it up, and they carry it away and they lean it up against the float, so that's fine. So we go for the second wing, and they grab the rope, and the guys pull up with the wing, and up it comes. And what appears at the top of the surface is the wing root, and it's the same as my airplane. And there's a little porthole there, and that's where the fuel gauge goes. Same on my airplane. And there it is, and there's the top of the wing. And somebody says, "Look, there's the ring. There is the ring." And it's unexplainable. I mean, I can't explain it. There's the ring. And there's old Joe there from Sandy Bay, and he grabs that ring, and I'm standing right there, and he gives it to me, and I got the ring. I can't believe I got the ring. I put it on my finger, and I dash it as fast as I can on the slippery, all this ice and slime and stuff. And I get over looking for Don Capusa, and he's looking at the wing. I said, "Don," the ring. It was like we won the World Series. It was like the whole atmosphere changed, and everybody was so excited, and they gathered around, and the women, and people are crying and hugging, and they want to touch it. And, the family, the Capusas are just beside themselves. They cannot believe it. There's the wedding ring. Thumb. And everybody knew, for all these days, that's what they wanted, was this wedding ring. It's quite remarkable. So these are a little bit out of order. There's the airplane coming up. By that time, we've got the wings out. The wings are out, but everybody's just jubilant. But it's getting later in the day. You see, got the shadows there. We're starting to run out of time. And there's a bag. Get up, the baggage door pops off. I grab it, and there's one of the wings there. But look how wrinkled it is. It's just destroyed. It's just there it is. So there's the wing root, and it comes up, and And there, that the ring was sitting right there. Now, you know, just beyond comprehension. Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, but that ring got cut and then went to the bottom, vertical, and came up and, you know, we were jogging stuff around and it ended up there. Yeah. It happened. There's the fuselage starting to come out. Well, just about out. Of course, the tail's still on it, right? And the hole's only so big, right? And so you got to move stuff around, and you dip the front of it down to get it out so you could have the tail at another angle, and away we go. Yeah, it's just like just trying to get a whale out of the water, you know, when you pull it. So now the tail's starting to come up. This was pretty good. So of course it's really bent, and they got all these straps, and they're starting to move it up and a little bit, and the tail comes up. But they're levering at the back. They've got a rake or something, and they're trying to lever the back in, and they're I can see they're lifting on. Everybody's talking to Danny, and well, not everybody, but it's, you know, there's lots of excitement going on, and they're leaning on the tail cone. There's the tail cone. I'm looking at this tail cone. I'm thinking, oh, that tail cone. All the screws. Anytime there's a screw anywhere in the steel, it's rusted and they're gone. So the steel stuff is really deteriorated. The aluminum stuff's okay, but the steel stuff is just really, really rotten. And so I go, I think, oh geez, we're gonna lose that tail cone. And I run around to the back, and I reach out over the water, and I grab that tail cone, and it just comes off in my hand. I can't believe it. I got the tail cone, and it started to slip. It's kind of slimy, and it started to slip. I remember grabbing on that thing, and I pulled it back, and it was just like I pulled a 20-pound jackfish out of the lake. You know, it was just there. I was so happy. I got the tail cone. So I'm beat. I haven't even got my head on straight. But I got a trophy picture. I got the tail cone that just about went back down to the bottom of the lake. So there, I was kind of, somebody took my picture of the tail cone. So there you go. And now we're bringing it up. There's the tail coming out of the water. Yeah, all those board, just all the little pieces of the puzzle. And there you go. So I got my picture taken by the tail of the airplane. I just couldn't believe it. It's getting late in the day, and of course, Ontario people got to catch a flight in the morning, and they're kind of done. They want to go. I'm the driver, right? I'm saying, no, I should stay. I gotta help load this airplane on that trailer. And, no, we gotta go with it. So there we go. Anyway, we got a few more pictures. A picture of the tail comes up. Juliet Delta Oscar. Here's my hat. They brought me this from Ontario. I always wear one of these hats. I always wear one of these hats with the Canadian Air Force flag on. My classic hat is the yellow one, but they brought me one that says Charlie Foxtrot, Juliet Delta Oscar. And so there's the tail section coming up to the surface. Another one of those pictures, another one of those trophy pictures. I don't know what you call them. That fellow on the right, he was just huge. He's the mayor of Michelle Village, just a real stand-up guy. And this is sort of the, you know, this is the Michelle Village guys at the end of the day. Let's get a quick picture. There's still a bunch of them not in the picture, but everybody's pretty beat. It's been pretty tough. And this is really cool. Okay, so we bugger off. We get in the truck and we head out, and it's day 7, and we like to have a happy hour at the end of the day. It takes 2 hours to get back to the hotel, and then we have a little bit of debriefing at the hotel room, right? Somebody brought us a fresh bottle that day out to the lake, and because they'd been to the liquor store, he picked us up a little bottle at the liquor store. So anyway, on the way we come off, we leave the site, and we're really, really happy because we've got the airplane out, we've got the ring, and they're catching a flight in the morning, and we head back, and so we have a little snort. We have a little snort coming off the lake and celebrate, a little toast for Juliet Delta Oscar and the ring and everything, and we head back. It takes 2 hours. We don't drink the bottle, we just have a toast. We get back, but then we have a debriefing. So we're sitting there and we're telling stories, and everybody's just really, really happy, and we're having that drink of whiskey, and I get a text message, and it says, and it's from one of my helpers. It's from Dustin, and we're texting a little bit, and he says, oh geez, we found another bone. Oh, okay, what kind of a big one? He said. Okay, and there's Dr. Kapusta there, and he says, well, take a picture of it and send it. Well, he was the guy that was just against any pictures of it. But now we're at a point where at the end, and he says, "Take a look, I can't believe it." So he sends the phone and a picture, and we get that. And I said, "Well, where are you? Where's the airplane?" And he says, "Oh, it's in Michelle Village." And they had loaded that entire airplane, the 2 floats, the 2 wings, the whole kit caboodle. They loaded it in that trailer. They cooked lunch in that day, and they had it all the way back to Michelle Village. I couldn't believe it. I said, "What? You got it all the way back there?" "Oh yeah, we loaded it tonight. It's all there. It's ready to go to Saskatoon." What? I said, "That would have taken." I worked for the governor for 28 years. That would have taken 3 days. I couldn't believe it. So that's fine. And we deal with the Boeing stuff. We have a system set up, and so we deal with that. That's all. It's all good. But so anyways, that's just a bit of a story. So we're having our debriefing. There's our bottle of whiskey, and that's Doran, and then we're just telling stories, and everybody's just, it's happy hour, right? I come out in the morning, and there's a wreath. I couldn't believe it. There's my truck. There's a wreath, and the community of Michelle Village made this wreath. And I'll zoom in on it here. And it's got Ray, G, and Harold. So that's the pilot and the conservation officer. And it's got the name of the airplane on the side, and it's got this ribbon on this wreath. And the name of everybody from Michelle Village that helped is on that ribbon. Wow. Very, very cool. So I'm sure that's going to hang in the museum in Saskatoon, as it should. A few more pictures. We're getting ready to go to the airport. These guys are going to catch their flight. And there's Joe on the left. He's the guy that grabbed the ring and handed it to me. And National Geographic Mike, the diver Mike, he got a hat. He got a fur hat out of the deal. He was real happy with the fur hat. And there he is heading out with the fur hat. And I'm there. So the 310 comes back in and from Mitchison's and they pick up the crew and they're heading out to catch their flight back to Ontario, and that's fine. And so there's the big goodbye. Everybody's gone. But so that's great. But it's a happy ending. And but of course, I got to go back to get the compressor, right? so I have to go back out to the site, out to the lake, and so I got another day to put in. And that's all good because I go back and there's the airplane sitting in the yard at Michelle Village. Go ahead.
Is there different material in that aircraft where the tail is well preserved compared to the fuselage?
No, it's not different material. No.
Why is
Well, I think it's part of the paint job. Some of the paint was faded. There was some yellow, and the yellow was faded, and I mean, it's been sitting on the bottom of the lake for 60
Well,
years.
I know, but the tail is in better shape than the rest.
Yeah, but the fuselage hit the water.
Yeah.
The water just went in,
Yeah.
right?
No, I can't explain some of this stuff, and it's going to be an exhibit at the museum, and it's all good. But you know what? To answer your question, it's the same material. It's aluminum. It's the same as my airplane. So I go there, and there's everything loaded in the back of this truck. See? And there's the cockpit. So the family wants a few things. They want a few things. That's part of my assignment here. They want the control column, and they want the data plates, and they want a few things. There's a bit of negotiation. Well, of course, I know time's moving on, but we're just about done. The museum wanted the airplane for an exhibit. They wanted to restore it. They wanted it to raise the profile of the museum for a whole bunch of reasons, which are okay, but they didn't have any money, and the family wanted the remains, and they wanted the ring, and they wanted to have it done their way, and so the airplane was owned by the provincial government, and so they actually had to get permission to raise the airplane, and the museum. Doran was butting heads with. I tried to find a civil servant to grant that permission, right? 60 years after the fact. And Doran was butting heads there, and he wasn't getting anywhere. But the family was also talking, and the family made arrangements. So the family actually owns the airplane, and they get what they want out of it. But they're donating it to the museum. As long as the museum is there and they do things in accordance with the way the family would like, that they have it. So it's a good arrangement. It's a good arrangement. It's an honorable arrangement. And but the family wanted the control column, and they wanted a few things. I got the data plates, so there you go. So I climbed up inside there, and I grabbed that control wheel, and I just pulled it back, and out it came in my hand. The universal link, it's just all rusted out. So go ahead.
Doug,
that looks like the flap panel,
Yeah.
beyond
Yeah.
full flaps.
Yeah. Well,
Was that frozen, that was the way it was?
that's, yeah, oh yeah, you never move it.
So,
I don't know.
yeah,
No, I don't,
they had 40 degrees of flaps on.
well, I don't know. No, I don't know. We haven't got that, I don't know what to say. I don't, I don't know what to say. So, there I am standing up in the cockpit with the control wheel in my hand, so there you go. Got the data plate, serial number 32580, mine's 31718. It's just there it is. This is interesting. So here we are, I'm seeing the airplane pretty much upright for the first time, and it's wider than the trailer, and we have to get permission from the Highway Traffic Board to haul it to Saskatoon, and all this stuff is just piled in there. And but somebody brings it to my attention. He says, "There's some strange writing on the tail of that airplane," and I'm thinking, yeah. And I go to take a look, and I see that, and I'm thinking, because what we have here is we have the elevator. There's the horizontal stabilizer, and there's the elevator of the airplane. And there's writing here. And I'm thinking, I'm scratching my head, and I'm thinking, geez, what is that? And I have seen some writing in that location on a few Cessna 180s, 185s, but not very often. But I'm thinking, geez, that looks like, could that be creosyllabics? So I take a picture. And I when I get back that night, the next night I get back home, and I send that picture, I tell the story to a friend of mine on the ranch, Tom J. McKenzie. He's the former chief of the La Grange Indian Band, and I work with him on some other projects. And I sent him the picture, and I told him the story, and I said, could you just look at that and get back to me when you can and let me know, is that creosyllabics? And if it is, what does it say? And it is. It's creosyllabics. And it says, don't touch, do not touch here. And essentially what happened, that was a pretty new airplane at the time, in Cessna 180, and if you're coming out from the dock, somebody grabs the tail and points you out. If you get your finger caught, if you get your finger in between the elevator and stabilizer and pilot moves control column, you lose your finger. And it probably happened to somebody, so they put a placard on. And back in 1959, that's how you communicated with Cree people. If in writing, was by syllabics. Those days are gone. But it's a reflection of the times. It's pretty neat. So yeah, it is in fact Cree syllabics. So I had to go back out of the ice. I got the guys to come out with the big truck, and we hooked on with that trailer. And so I was the last guy off the site there, and there's the hole. That's the swan picture right there, and that's where it came from. And there is the ring. So there you go, folks. So this is from just last week, and it's fresh. I got a couple of requests to make speaking presentations, and so I got to refine this. And there's lots of other pictures. We're going to try and pull it together. And I know there's a story here. The Saskatchewan Association of Conservation Officers, they've got their annual meeting. The fish cops have got their annual meeting coming up in Meadow Lake, and they've asked me to come over and make a presentation, so I'm going to go over and do that. And I think at some point at the museum in Saskatoon, Doran wants to have a supper or a fundraiser or something, and so maybe there'll be more of this. But anyway, that's my presentation for here, and thanks for listening.